Any questions? Okay. So what we're going to do next is what we're going to do next is the practice exam. There's going to be two parts, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is we're going to do it as a class, as a group. I'll put up a poll in a second here, and you can go down and answer the questions and enter it. And it will share the results. The results will not have your name on, but I will know who participated and who didn't. And the reason that's important is you get extra credit points added to your test for as a group, depending on how well you did. And here's how that works. Okay. Okay. Sure. And I wish just my complaint about Zoom, but I wish they just had like things right at the bottom where you just click on the one thing and it'll go from one camera to another. I wish there was like shortcuts you could put in. Okay. So okay, so multiple choice. And I'll give you guys a poll thing to put up in a second. All right, if the class gets so if you get at least 50% of them, let's do best. So whatever the class does, if you get at least 75%, plus 3, and if you get 100%, plus 4. So when we look at the poll, and majority wins. And the reason what I mean is if 3 people pick A and 1 person picks C, we go with A. So you know, it's just kind of the way that it's like a democracy. So anyway, so this is for part 1. Part 2 we're going to do together. Part 2 is what you'll actually turn in as far as this. The practice exam part 1, you don't need to turn in because your name is going to be included in the polling. Okay. So something here. So let me ask, is there anyone that did not get the part 1 of the practice exam? Okay, I'm going to assume by your silence that you have. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the poll. Launch polling. And what you're going to do is put in your answer for A, B, C, or D, 1 through 10. This one happens to have 10. Sometimes they don't have 10, sometimes they have less. One more, and then I have to put up 2 polls. But so go through here and do your best and put the you know, what you think the answers are. If you're not exactly sure, again, put your best guess in. And this is what we'll use to, oops, to determine the extra credit points. Let's see here. And again, just the results are shared with the class as far as what was put on there. Your name is not put on there, so no one will know who answered what. Is anyone that isn't clear on what we're doing? So in the poll, question 1, pick A, B, C, or D. Okay. And you'll get the answers, obviously. I'm going to help you with one because we haven't talked about it. I'll talk about it as we go over it. But this is a liability, so this is not the answer. All right, see if you can't figure, if you're not finished it, see if you can finish up in the next few minutes. Let's see, okay. Yeah, and then we'll go through them. I'll give you guys the the solutions to it, obviously. I just sent out the part 2. If you want, you can look ahead at that. We're obviously not going to do that until we get done with the part 1. see that numbering system I gave you? 1 and 2. But anyway, yeah. So, and again, don't be afraid to make a mistake. The CPA exam, by the way, a lot of people don't know this. CPA exam, you pass it with 75%. Point being is that perfection, is not expected in most fields, but even in accounting. I mean, it's a tough area, and so if you get 75% on the CPA exam, you're good. Is anyone still working on it? If you are, if you could say something, or else you would just put it in chat to say, yeah, if you're still working on it. Yeah, so so let me know if someone is still working on it. Oops, what am I doing here? I don't want to close the polling and have people not get their extra credit points. Okay, no one else is still working on it? Okay, I'll close the poll then. Okay. So, answer 1. Debts navigational business are referred to as liabilities. That one is correct. Question 2. Question 2. Someone picked E. There is no E. Not sure what to do with that one. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and give it to you. Small class, it's something that's hard to get a majority. It's investments. And if you look at these, even if you didn't know that investments were an asset, okay, you know that mortgage payable is a liability. Common stocks and equity and retained earnings are an equity. So on some of these, you can kind of reason through them, even if you're not exactly sure of what it is. If you know that the other, if you know that these are not assets, sometimes you can figure out through it. Okay, 3. 3, this is correct. And I told you I'd talk about unearned revenue, and I will. I'll do that right now. Oops. Okay, so C is the correct answer. You guys got C. You guys get the points for it. Unearned revenue is a little bit of an odd account. It happens all the time, but it's when someone pays you ahead of time. It's sort of the opposite of accounts receivable. Accounts receivable, you do the work and they owe you money, right? So if you mow someone's lawn and they pay you $20, or they owe you $20. That's an accounts receivable. Unearned revenue is when someone pays you ahead of time. So if someone says, I want you to mow my lawn, here's $20. They give you the cash ahead of time. And maybe you can't mow the lawn until next week. Well, I can't mow it. I'll mow it next Monday or whatever. It's the money that was received in advance from a customer. So it's received ahead of time. Instead of there being a delay in them paying you, they're paying you ahead of time. And the reason that's a liability is if you don't mow the lawn, you owe them $20. So it's a liability because it's owed. Basically, it's owed until you do the work. So it's a liability because if you don't do the work, you have to pay it back. Now, once you do the work, then it's just plain old revenue. And we'll talk about that later on. But at least initially, if they give you money ahead of time. So it's a little bit strange in that it's kind of the opposite of accounts receivable, in that not only have they've paid you before you did the work. And it could be for whatever reason. Okay. Number 4 is correct. C, you got C. 5 is correct. Six, got to do a little cipher in here. So we have beginning retained earnings of now we have to find our income. They don't tell us our income, but they do tell us we have revenues of 500,000. Oops. And dividends. $550. Oh, is correct. Okay, 7. Even split. Be careful on this one. They give you a bunch of information, but they're only asking for the net income. Question 8. Oh, this one's tricky.
Is 7?
Huh?
7, isn't it 50K?
You're right. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Oopsie daisy. My apologies. Yes, it is 50,000. Okay, question 8. This is actually kind of tricky. So assets were 140,000. Oops, too many zeros. Liabilities were 80,000. Now, they don't tell us what the beginning equity was. You know, they don't tell it to us, but we can figure it out because we know that both of these two sides have to equal. So if you have 140,000 of assets and 80,000 of liabilities, how much equity do you have? Well, to take 140,000 minus the 80. So this is a calculated number. Is it 60? Okay. So at the beginning, they said during the year they recorded 220 of revenues and 110 of expenses and paid dividends of 40. Now, what second at the end of the year was okay. So this is kind of the knowing the statement of retained earnings basically, because this can be the income. Can I just do this here? Let me copy this. Save this stuff here. Okay, revenues were 220. Expenses were 110. Oh, I hate this. And net income. This net income of 110 is it's an unhappy coincidence. These two are usually not the same. They can be, but they're usually not. Okay, so basically, somewhere in this beginning equity, you would have the retained earnings statement. So we would say and they pay dividends of nope. Okay, so 60. $130. You guys got that one right. Yay! That's a tough one. Okay, if total equity decreased by no, scratch it. Total liabilities decreased by 50,000 and stockholders' equity increased by 10 during the same period, then total assets must have changed by. Okay, so those are like this: liabilities. Oops. Decreased by 50,000. Equity increased by 10,000. So the change for that side would be minus 40,000. So this change of minus 40,000, if this side changes by 40,000, goes down, then this side has to go down by 40,000. Very good. So if the liability is an equity, these two sides have to equal. So yeah. You know, so if this site changed by going down by 40, then this site has to change by 40. Okay, great. 10, dividends appear on, yes. Very good. Okay, there's a couple of them there that were not, but we'll give you everyone who participates gets a plus 3. Okay. Actually, in the basement. My wife's getting yogurt. Okay. Okay, so if you participate in the poll, you get extra credit of +4 on your test. Very good. Okay, and I will download the poll. Okay. All right. So let's go to the next thing. That is the part 2. Now the part 2 you'll actually turn in, and we'll go through turning it into. You know how we do that. Okay, so this is part 2. Is anyone that did not get the part 2? Okay, now from now on, let me just go to jump into Blackboard for a second. Okay, in Blackboard, here's the Zoom meeting. You can click on this or click on the thing. You guys probably already seen that. Recorded meeting. So this is the one from yesterday. So if you do miss a class, whatever, you know, not that big a deal. You go in there. It's usually posted. This one actually didn't post for a while, but it just depends. Hour or 2 after class. Sometimes it takes up to 5 or 6 hours. But anyway, this is where we're going to turn in assignments, and I'll show you how we do that. We're going to do chapter 1 handout, which you guys have already done. And here are the course files. And you'll see that you can, the course file should be there. So if you're ever in a meeting or whatever, your email doesn't work or whatever it is, you can go into Blackboard and you can get the files too. So it's sort of like, these first, I don't know, 4 ones are ones that we're really going to be dealing with a lot. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this, and then we'll turn some stuff in. Okay. First thing you'll notice about this is it's kind of wacky. We're not used to seeing things in debits and credits. Actually, this is what we're going to be doing in the next chapter, but we haven't done it yet in this chapter. For what we're doing, don't worry about debits and credits. Cash is 1,200. Accounts receivable is 480, and so on and so forth. Don't worry about whether it's a debit or credit. All right. Now, I will give you a little bit of heads up, though, as far as what this is kind of getting into what we're going to do next class. There's debits and credits. You'll notice something, and that is the debits are what we pay money out. You pay for assets. You pay for expenses. You pay dividends. You'll notice that the credit side is getting money in. You can borrow money, sell stock, or sell something, have revenues. So you notice the debits are money that you pay out and credits are money coming in. Again, you don't need to know that for this class, but that's kind of how these are broken up. And again, we'll talk more about this next class, but for right now, we'll go ahead and, again, we're just using the numbers. Don't worry about debit and credit. At this point, it doesn't really mean anything to us. Okay, so income statement. What do we start out with? Oh, come on. You guys are toying with me. I'm gonna play with my little motorcycle until you guys answer. We start out with an income statement.
Revenue?
Yep. We have a revenue. So this is money coming in, 54. So revenues are money coming in. And the rest of these are going to be money going out. And the one that's kind of quirky, and we talked about last time, was this cost of goods sold. Because this is actually not cash going out, it's an asset going out, but it's inventory. And once the inventory is sold, you no longer have it. So it isn't cash going out, it's actually a different asset, inventory going out. Okay, so cost of goods sold. So it's not cash going out, but it is an asset going out. And then our expenses. And those are a little more intuitive, because we all have those. Rent expenses. Okay. And so I make sure on the test, which I'm going to send out today, and I'll talk about it. And by the way, the test is very similar to the practice exam, and you'll have a week to do it. So we'll have some time. Okay, so all these together will give us our net income. So expenses will always go on the income statement. Occasionally, students make an error, they put it in liabilities. Liabilities are going to be the payables. Well, those are the liabilities. Those are liabilities. Whenever you see that magic word expense, it goes on the income statement. Or if you see cost. I know I'm doing this. Sure you guys caught onto this long before I did that. Okay, so net income. Oops, turn the calculator on. I'm sure you do that. Turn your calculator on before you write that down. $16.20. Is that what you guys got?
Yeah, that's what I got.
Okay, and then retained earnings. Start with our beginning retained earnings. Oops. And then we put in our net income. I'm just going to be lazy and copy that. And the net income gets added. Oops. And so this net income, this is just from here, the same. So this is the owner's piggy bank, and they started out with 3,000. They made another $1,620. They took some money out. Took out 240. Whatever that is. $43.80. Okay, so that is how much the owners have in their piggy bank. And again, they get paid out of their piggy bank. If their piggy bank's empty, they can't get in. They can't get paid. In this case, it's not a problem because they still have more than $4,000, and so they can cover this $240 dividend. Okay, assets are anything with a value, and we have a bunch of them. We have 5 of them. Yeah, accounts receivable is an asset because it's going to turn into cash. Okay. Yes, I was screwing up. 1,200, 480. 6840. Okay, liability, account payable, taxes payable. Okay, so all these payables are liabilities. They're all gonna be liabilities. They have payable, that's the magic word. These are liabilities. Okay, it's probably not magic. Okay. Bonds payable, we haven't talked about bonds. They are payable, but, and they're a liability, but we didn't talk about those. Talk about those in a minute. So 360. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about, well, let me finish up. I'll talk about bonds payable. Okay, equity, we have common stock. The owners. 600. And the one that a lot of people miss, hopefully nobody misses it. So I'm hoping as the ending retained earnings. The only mistake is usually in there. Usually if they put the beginning retained earnings. So it's going to come from over here. Yep. Okay. Question on that? Okay, I'll just talk briefly about bonds payable. There's actually a whole chapter, but bonds payable are when a lot of times they're for very large amounts, and it's when you take a loan and break it up into a bunch of small little pieces, and you do that so that you can sell. You can basically you're selling the loan. Loans have a value. People buy them. We just refinanced my house, and before the ink was dry on the mortgage, it was already sold. So, yeah. get a letter to mail. Who are you? Oh, we bought your mortgage. Okay. So anyway, but it's the same idea. Is that if you get a loan, you sign the papers, give them the papers. Those papers have a value equal to the loan. So if you get a loan for $5,000, you sign the papers. Those papers are worth $5,000, and they give you $5,000 of cash. It's the same thing. The bonds are that you issue or sell the bond, but really they're the same thing. You owe them money. It's a promise to pay the money that has a value, and they give you the cash. Same thing as a loan, except they usually chop it up into a lot of different pieces, so that let's say they break it up into loans of or bonds of $1,000. They might be trying to raise $2 million. But to get $2 million from one bank is kind of hard. So they'll break up that loan into, say, 1,000 piece bonds. So someone might buy one bond for $1,000. Someone might buy 20 for $20,000, and so on and so forth. So you can actually get the loan by getting a whole bunch of people to lend you money. So that's all bond is. It's basically taking a loan and breaking it up into small pieces, so that you can sell those different pieces to different people. So, so for instance, if they had, 1,000 of the bonds, those are basically like 1,000 little loans that they sold. They gave the money, they gave the paper, they're promising to pay, that has a value, and they get the money back. Same thing as a loan. Okay. All right. Well, let's so go ahead and save. However you want to do it, the chapter 1, part 2 handout. You do not have to turn in the part 1. The part 1, I already got the poll, and that's what you need your extra credit points for. So part 1, you do not have to turn in. So let's go to not that. First of all, any questions on this thing? And again, ignore the debits and credits. But you're going to get one of these on the exam. The exam will have debits and credits. But again, they don't mean anything to us. Okay. Let me. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Go to assignments and exams, submit here. And if you did it in if you did it in Word, you can submit it. If you did it in a PDF file, if you did it on a notebook, just take pictures of it. But the chapter 1 handout, however you want to turn it is fine. So if you printed it out and you did did it by hand, that's absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. And just take the pictures, submit it. And you have unlimited amounts of things to submit. So you don't have to put it all into one. For those of you that have Apple, using Apple phones and pads and stuff like that, I would encourage you to submit the pictures separately. Don't put them into a page file. Blackboard doesn't like page files. Why Blackboard doesn't like the most popular phones in the world, I don't know, but for whatever reason, it doesn't really. So, but if you submit the pictures, they're fine. So, and again, you can submit 5 pictures, 10 pictures, 20 pictures, whatever it is. It's unlimited. And as a matter of fact, one of the things I'm going to do right now is show you how I enter the assignments. This is how, not just me, but other instructors also.
So we submit everything on there, underneath, under chapter 1 handout?
For chapter 1.
Just for that? Okay.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put in the chapter 1 practice exam, part 2. And actually, I'll do that right now. So this was going to be the.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I'm doing. So here is name is. And by the way, if you're in, this is for accounting 210 and accounting 403. I usually just abbreviate it to accounting 210. If you're in a graduate school, I don't mean to ignore you, but it's just that it makes it more compact. Okay, so this will be the Chapter 1 practice exam. Part 2. Again, you don't need to turn to part 1. You already answered the multiple choice for part 1. I already have it in the file. Okay, coming down here. Due date. We will make this due next Friday. So you have about a week. Turn it a little more than a week. So the 11th, which is next Friday. Points possible, 100. You can actually get more because you guys did the extra credit, and the extra credit will add in. Submission details, unlimited attempts. And which one do I take? The highest grade. And by the way, this is also important too. In that if you do get a grade on something, you know, on the homework, on the handouts or practice or whatever, you know, let's say you did half of it and I gave you 50%. If you complete it, you can resubmit it, and I'll take it and I'll put it in the higher grade. So it's always going to be the highest grade that will be taken in, and there's no penalty points on it. So again, you know, so if you turn something in and you turn in the wrong file or whatever, you turn in a blank, and I always get some of those, and it's not that big a deal. So if you do get a lower score, you can always turn it back in, and it will, and I'll change it to the higher score. Okay, so it can be due on the 11th. It is a individual assignment, obviously. Unlimited attempts, you do as many as you want. Submit 30 of them. And the highest grade is taken, and that's it. And now we gotta submit it. Okay. So the Chapter 1 handout is basically the 3 problems 2, 4, and 6. Once you get those done, you're going to submit them here. The Chapter 1 practice exam that we just did is submitted here. And again, however you did it, you did it on a notebook, you did it on the Word. I'll take it any way you did. It does not have to be in the handout either, so you don't have to print out the handout. If you want to do it just in your notebook, that's fine too. And you don't have to worry about putting your name on the file. I mean, you can do it. There's nothing wrong with doing it, but so we'll submit it and go, oh gee, I forgot to put my name on the file. It automatically goes in, and when it's downloaded, it will have your name on it. You know, anything that's submitted in your account. All right. Any questions? Okay, now tonight I'm going to send out the exam for Chapter 1. Kind of just give you an idea of what it is. It basically comes off the Chapter 1 practice exam. It's just to know that you know how to do it. Basically, is it. Now the exam is worth 80%, so they're worth more than these other ones. And you just submit them the same way though, and I'm actually going to put it in right now. Okay, 210, Chapter 1 exam, and everything else is going to be the same. The date is going to be next Friday. Rating 100 points. Unlimited attempts. Highest grade. So if you do that, if you do it on the notebook paper, I think that there's either 5 or 6 multiple choice questions. You know, so just put your answers on it. If you want to do it on the notebook paper, that's fine. Put your answers on it. Take a picture of it and send it in. So that's great, and that's it. So these two are for today. And the exam will be, will also be sent out. I'll send it out in about the next half hour or so. You should get them. And that will take care of chapter 1. That'll be it for chapter 1. Any questions? No? Had enough accounting for today? I think I have. All right, so I will send those out. Submit your chapter 1 handout and chapter 1 practice exam, and where it says, you know, I don't know who came up with these you know, light green on white, but I'm gonna see if I can change those to a darker color, or at least a more a better contrasting color. So anyway, so assignments and exams submitted here, that's where you submit those. The exams, by the way, this is one of the things I should tell you about. The exams, I send the exams to you through email. You will not find the exams here. You'll not find the exams in the course file. Why? Because one student may have Form A, so they may have Form B, Form C, or D, whatever. So you will not find the exams in the course files because everyone's going to get a different one, or not everybody. You know, you're going to get a different different forms. Some might have Form A, Form B, whatever. And by the way, make sure you turn in the form I send you. Sometimes people get a form that I didn't send them. That always causes for an awkward moment. But so make sure you return the exam that I sent out. And again, the exams are in the emails. You know, I'll put that. I'm going to put that on here so you don't look for exams here. Any questions? Okay, so start looking in your email in about a half hour or so, and you should see the exam. And it's very similar to what we just went through. So you should be able to kind of use that as a guide to figure out where things go. Next week, we're going to start in on chapter 2. So, I mean, if you have questions on the exam and that, you can ask questions. But all next week, we're going to basically start in on chapter 2. Any questions? Okay, well, if there's no questions, then I will see you guys next Tuesday, and you should be getting the exam shortly. Okay. All right, have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Well, thanks.